What's up, Vault Dwellers? Dan here. And if you were a movie kid in the 80s like I was, chances are you spent at least like one sleepover watching something furry, fanged, and filmed under questionable lighting conditions. For some reason, that decade was just absolutely obsessed with werewolves. The 80s, they gave us like every kind of werewolf imaginable. They had tragic ones, goofy ones, horny ones, and even basketball-playing ones. It was a decade when you couldn't throw a silver bullet without hitting a transformation sequence. Today, we're going to count down 13 insane 80s werewolf movies, from VHS dust collectors to genre-defining nightmares that still make your hair stand on end. So grab some wolfsbane, lock your doors, and remember, never trust anyone with unusually thick sideburns. By the time the Howling V, the Rebirth, shuffled onto VHS shelves, this franchise, it had already shed more skins than a molting snake. This entry, well, it takes place in a crumbling Hungarian castle where a group of strangers gather for a mysterious reunion, only to realize, one of them, they're a werewolf. So basically, it's just like Clue, but with claws, complete with red herrings, dark hallways, and more who's the beast moments than you can count.
It's not possible. I heard footsteps.
Echoes. These tunnels crisscross. You probably heard one of us.
And it was Peter expecting when he jumped us.
He was confused. The bang on the head, the gunshot, the scream. Something coming after him. He didn't know what.
The setting gives the movie some surprising atmosphere, and a European castle, it does add a gothic flavor that's missing from the earlier sequels. Unfortunately, the werewolf, he doesn't even show up until deep in the runtime. The filmmakers accidentally left the monster suit in customs. Still, the film deserves credit for trying something new instead of recycling the California in a forest trope again. For a fifth entry, the Rebirth actually has some ambition. It's the cinematic equivalent of finding a halfway decent burger at the gas station. I mean, you didn't expect much, but you'll take it anyways. Basically, Night Shadow, it's what happens when your local news station tries to make a horror movie. So we have a late night talk show host who returns to her small hometown just as a hitchhiking drifter, who also happens to be a werewolf, rolls into town at the same time. Then, bodies start piling up, the sheriff's department fumbles, and the synth soundtrack works overtime trying to convince you this was made for theaters instead of a VHS bargain bin.
Wait, what about me? Stay here. I don't want her alone.
I mean, really, this one's an oddball. The pacing wanders like a wolf with no GPS, and the transformations are shot in that classic cut to shadow, cue growling sound method of low-budget cinema. But there is something like, we'll say, endearing about its small-town paranoia and its attempt to mix Americana with monster movie tropes. It kind of feels like the filmmakers believed they were making the next silver bullet, but they didn't. But bless them for trying to, you know?
Don't worry! Come on, light it!
somewhere between like The Breakfast Club and The Howling lies Lone Wolf. This is a movie where a rock band and a nerdy student, they discover there is a werewolf killing people at their high school. It's like someone dared John Hughes to make a creature feature, but instead, he just handed it to his least successful cousin to finish it. This one, it's just got 80s DNA all over it. We got our neon lighting, there's some cassette players, lots of denim jackets, and characters who look 30, but they insist they're still in high school. Believe it or not, the makeup effects, they really aren't half bad. And there's this weird sincerity to the teen angst meets monster chaos. It's a great snapshot of 80s indie horror, when like everyone thought a werewolf and a fog machine could get them a distribution deal. It didn't, but it did give us a time capsule of just pure VHS weirdness. This one's actually not strictly a werewolf movie, but hey, it earns its place because it's an anthology, and one of the segments, which is a twisted take on Little Red Riding Hood, that's where Red's teenage brother and his psychiatrist turned werewolf patient turned the fairy tale into a sleazy horror comedy. So try and imagine Grimm's fairy tales rewritten by someone who spent too long in a video rental store's horror aisle, just like I did. It's messy, bloody, and delightfully tasteless. The kind of movie that looks like it was edited with garden shears. With the Red Riding Hood segment, it deserves credit, being one of the first to mash fairy tales and monsters together with 80s excess. The creature effects, super rubbery. The acting, totally overcooked. And the humor, it's just hit or miss. But there's an undeniable charm in its gonzo approach. If you ever wanted to see bedtime stories that require a tetanus shot, this one's just for you. From Spanish horror legend Paul Naschy, we have Night of the Werewolf, which follows his reoccurring character, Waldemar Daninsky. He's a cursed nobleman who's resurrected by grave robbers who accidentally unleash him on a trio of vampire countesses. Yep, it's werewolves versus vampires, decades before Underworld thought it invented the idea. Naschy's love of gothic horror it oozes from every frame. You know, this movie is just drenched in the atmosphere of fog and bare-chested 80s bravado. The production values are, I would say, surprisingly solid, and Naschy plays the role with his Shakespearean seriousness he always comes with. Sure, I know it's melodramatic and occasionally confusing, but it's also just pure Euro horror magic. You've got your lush visuals, tragic monsters, and a soundtrack that sounds like it escaped from a Hammer film. It's one of those movies that proves werewolves, they didn't just belong to Hollywood. They were thriving on the foggy plains of Spain. Kids fighting classic Universal monsters? Totally count me in. The Monster Squad, it brings together Dracula, Frankenstein's monster, the Mummy, the Gill Man, and, of course, a werewolf who, as the kids remind us, has nards. It's the Goonies meets Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein, but with some 80s BMX energy and monster movie love all over it. You know what makes it work? It's how much love it has for these monsters. The Wolfman's design by Stan Winston is just awesome. He's hulking, snarling, and tragic in just the right way. The movie was a box office flop. Like, what do they know? Eventually, though, this became a cult phenom once kids like me discovered it on late night cable. It's the perfect blend of horror, humor, and heart.
Moment it can be shattered.
And if it is?
Then the balance between good and evil will shift, and evil will rule.
I'm a werewolf. Where would that scumbag keep it?
Man, this movie was just everywhere when I was growing up. Michael J. Fox, he turned lycanthropy into a metaphor for puberty, popularity, and some basketball. Teen Wolf follows Scott Howard. He's an average high school kid who suddenly discovers he's a werewolf, and that being hairy somehow makes him great at sports and even dating. Only in the 80s could turning into a monster improve your social life. This one's lighthearted, it's goofy, and it's just totally of its era. I loved this movie back when I watched it. What was I, like 11 years old, I think, when I saw this? So instead of fangs and blood, we get slam dunks, slow motion hi-fis, and headstands on vans. This film became a pop culture phenom, even spawning a cartoon series and a very confusing MTV reboot like years later. But beneath the comedy, Teen Wolf actually works as an accidental satire of teen movies. It's about embracing your weirdness, even if that means you're shedding in algebra class.
The boss called you, right?
Can't say he did.
Oh, hot damn. The boss is throwing a big bash for one of the boys down at the gravel pit. He just got paroled.
I'm totally a super fan of Stephen King, and this one, it was based on one of his novellas called Psychologa Werewolf, and it combines some small-town Americana, some creepy atmosphere, and really a surprising amount of heart. It's about a wheelchair-bound kid and his sister and their boozy Uncle Red, played by peak 80s Gary Busey, who discover that a local priest, he's secretly the werewolf terrorizing their town. It's one of the rare 80s horror films that just nails the tone. The werewolf designs, it's a little goofy, but the emotional beats, they land hard with this one. In the final act, it actually has some real tension. Corey Haim brings sincerity, and Busey brings Busey. It's scary, it's funny, and oddly touching. It's a slice of small-town nightmare with a silver lining. You know, if The Howling was classy horror, but I'm not saying it was, but if it was, The Howling 2, it's the same movies like Wild Cousin who shows up to Thanksgiving wearing sunglasses indoors. This one's starring Christopher Lee and Sybil Danning, and it takes the franchise into like full-on Eurotrash territory. I mean, we're talking punk rock, occult rituals, and leather outfits galore. It's totally nonsensical, so excessive, and just utterly glorious. This film feels like a music video directed by someone who fell asleep during the first movie and just like improvised a sequel from memory.
Come to me, my brother.
Christopher Lee somehow maintains his dignity, while surrounded by rubber werewolf suits and some 80s synth music. And Sybil Danning, well, I mean, the movie replays her shirt-ripping scene like 17 times during the end credits. I mean, that's not an exaggeration. That's 80s cinema. We're going to call this the cerebral wolf movie. Wolfing isn't about traditional werewolves, like, at all. It's about intelligent, shape-shifting wolves that are haunting the ruins of New York City. This stars Albert Finney as a detective who's investigating grisly killings, and it mixes horror with social commentary about urban decay and some Native American mysticism. Shot in gritty early 80s New York, it's a haunting, moody masterpiece that got unfairly lumped into the werewolf craze when it really was something else entirely. The film's wolf vision effect, you know, those eerie thermal point of view shots, which they were just like revolutionary and inspired like later creature films. It's horror with brains and some fangs, and while it confused audiences expecting another monster flick, it has aged beautifully. A few years before Teen Wolf made lycanthropy cool, Full Moon High, it turned it into slapstick. This is directed by Larry Cohen, and this comedy stars Adam Arkin. He's a high school football hero who was bitten by a werewolf during a trip to Romania. He returns decades later, still looking 17, and hilarity, confusion, and hair products ensue. It's kind of a satire on Cold War paranoia, teen culture, and a few horror tropes, but filtered through Cohen's trademark absurdist lens. The jokes come pretty fast, and the pacing's manic. And while, you know, it doesn't always land well, it is weirdly prophetic, right? Cohen basically made Teen Wolf about 4 years too early, but with more sarcasm and a lot less basketball.
He ain't my second cousin.
There goes the whole goddamn...
Hey, did you hear something?
Just now?
Yes.
No.
Sean, those hooligans are in the park again.
Now, I know most of you are going to be like, how come this isn't number one? But bear with me once we get to number one. So John Landis's American Werewolf in London, it's the gold standard of 80s horror comedy, balancing brutal scares with just absurd humor. It follows two American backpackers, and they encounter a werewolf on the moors of England. One dies, and the other slowly transforms into one of cinema's most iconic monsters. That transformation scene, done with like groundbreaking practical effects, it remains one of the most jaw-dropping in movie history. I mean, no CGI, no cheats, just latex, some air bladders, and pure artistry. The film's tone walks a razor's edge between terror and laughter, creating this tragic, darkly funny masterpiece that defined what 80s horror could be. It's the rare movie that managed to make you laugh and wince in the same breath. And this movie is just pure magic.
Believe what? That tomorrow night, beneath the full moon, I'll sprout hair and fangs and eat people? Bullshit.
Oh, God damn it, David, please believe me. You'll kill and make others like me.
All right, here we are. This is number one. This is Joe Dante's The Howling. let me explain to you why this one is number one for me. You see, I first saw this thing when I was 8 years old. I was sitting like cross-legged, way too close to the wood panel television. And let me tell you, this thing just scared the crap out of me. I was way too young to see this movie, and this thing traumatized my nightmares for years. And I, every so often, still have a nightmare with werewolves in it. Anyways, so the story, it's about a traumatized reporter who retreats to a secluded therapy colony, only to discover the damn thing's run by werewolves. This film, it just oozes atmosphere and satirical wit. It blends sharp commentary on media culture with just gnarly transformation effects. You know what makes it unforgettable? It's the frickin' tone. I mean, it's scary, yeah, but also like self-aware. That first transformation, the flesh stretching, you can hear the bones cracking. It was kind of a rite of passage for a lot of 80s horror fans. The Howling took the old Universal monster and just gave it claws, hair, and attitude. It's the reason half of us Gen Xers grew up terrified of fog machines, and the other half, they all just wanted to make monster movies. The 80s, they were the decade where the werewolves, they just broke loose from the shadows. Some were scary, some were silly, and some, like Howling 2, they were just plain bonkers. These films, they didn't just show us beasts under the moonlight. They reflected our fascination with transformation, fear, and the wild side hiding under all the Aquanet hairspray. So next time you feel nostalgic, dim the lights and let the synth and the snarls take you back. And don't forget to keep it weird, folks.
Hey man, will you give us a break?